Hey, guess who's live?
Live. Live.
Straight to you from summertime. Hey, we're in the future and it's summer here.
Live. Brought to you by Swan. Smash by Swan. Get your sats at Swan. SwanBitcoin.com/orange pill. My name is Max. This is Stacy.
That's right. I'm going to go over here to one thing. I'm going to switch our view on our side because that's better. Yeah. Hey, yeah, swanbitcoin.com/orange pill. We're going to do some smash buys later in the show. We're going to buy smash at all-time highs. That's a new thing I've developed since about the $20,000 mark. I kind of celebrate and am addicted to smash buying all-time highs.
That's the way the pros do it. New highs beget new highs. Nothing easier than something hitting a new high for it to hit another new high. You buy it on the way up. You can buy it on the way up. You increase your winners. You buy them on the way up. You get rid of your losers. And you stick with the winners.
Right. You know, I'm going to explain the title because people want to know. You know, I'm going to explain the title a little bit later in the show. You have to stick around for that. I called it Microdosing the Holy Roman Empire.
Wow.
Because I like the sound of it. I mean, the last microdose we did was microdosing 50,000. So obviously that was cheating. We were like we already did the $50,000 title episode.
Right.
So that wasn't really available to us. So I wanted to respond to all those people who miss the big picture, miss the deeper meaning, miss like the deep philosophical meanings, focusing on little things like, you know, those Twitter handles that do the thing for engagement where they go, hey, this is a photo of, you know, this is a photo of President, Kennedy at looking at all the in the Dakotas, looking at the presidents on the Mount Rushmore, but it's actually like John Wayne. Like they do that to so that people respond, that's not President Kennedy, it's John Wayne. Well, anyway, there was this really angry guy in the comments on the last podcast, the last episode of Orange Pill, because I had said Holy Roman Empire, referring to when the Byzantines had requested help from I mentioned that they were part of the Holy Roman Empire. It may have come out like that. But remember, the story I was talking about was Florence, and Florence was part of the Holy Roman Empire. You know, nominally, they were part of the Holy Roman Empire. And Byzantine was they didn't even call themselves Byzantine Empire until after they were gone. After they collapsed, historians called them the Byzantine Empire. They themselves called them the Roman Empire. Citizens of Constantinople called themselves the Roman Empire. So, like, you know, there were all sorts of weird identity politics going on back then. And I didn't really feel like, even the Holy Roman Empire, by the way, didn't get called that until about late in the 13th century. For the first few hundred years, they called themselves the Roman Empire, again, the new Roman Empire. So I didn't feel like that was the point of the show. Like, I felt like the point of the show was more that, you know, Constantinople collapsed and the Greek scholars fled. Oh, that was the other thing. Even though the citizens of Constantinople, basically, most of them spoke Greek, but they called themselves Roman. So
I feel like I'm having an acid trip right now.
Exactly.
I'll be quite honest with you. It's like Alistair Cook smoking crack. Like, what the heck is going on here?
But that's what
50,000. I'm
50,000.
sitting here and I'm aghast and I'm enlightened and I'm intrigued and I'm also blitzed. Like, what is going on? How did we get
to the Holy Roman
Constantinople from Bitcoin at 50,000?
What's that song with Constantinople? Dun, 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 Constantinople.
Okay, I think we've now entered even
like
another layer.
A lot of people keep on missing the big picture.
Yeah.
And I saw some comment in Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group today, and they were like, oh, Stacy and Max, I've been listening to you and watching you forever. And why didn't I listen to you sooner? It's too late now. And I'm like, dude, MicroStrategy just announced a convertible bond offering for $600 million to buy more Bitcoin. Like, that's why the price hit 50,000. So, like, if it's not too late for MicroStrategy, what are you doing sitting on the side? Like, people are crazy and they focus on the wrong thing.
Yeah, so true. But that's been true for the entire history of Bitcoin. Everyone has been, misunderstanding it or underestimating it now for the entire life of Bitcoin. And it's true today as it was back, when it was $5 a Bitcoin and $500 a Bitcoin. But the thing about Bitcoin price today is that there's actually less risk in owning Bitcoin today than ever before in the history of Bitcoin.
Look at this.
Wow, oh yeah, that was popular in Constantinople back, 1,600 years ago or 1,700 years ago or so. That's the fashion back then.
I like it.
No, it's fantastic. It's you can mine Bitcoin from the pendulous action of that pom-pom swinging from your left eyeglass arm.
I think we should sell it on the fashion line, in our fashion line.
Yeah, you call it Stacy's
Crazy lady.
pom-pom glasses. Cat lady
look.
Stacy gone cat lady. Hey, I cat lady. I gone cat lady.
We just did an interview with Anita Posch, that podcaster from Austria.
Yeah.
And the thing that stood out to me, which I could tell you because it's not, ruining the surprise, because this was after we stopped recording. She said to Max, like, Max, I like your style. Like, you talk to crazy people.
Yeah. What do you think she meant by that? I mean, was she talking about my multiple personalities and I'm talking to myself and all the people that are myself, my Sybil-like interior dialogues that are always arguing with each other 24/7? Is that what she meant? I wonder if that's what she meant. That's what I thought to myself. I said, well, are you looking at me? Of course you're looking at me. Who do you think you're looking at? You looking at me? Am I looking at you? Who am I looking at? Is she looking at me? Who is she looking at me? How many times is she looking at me? How many different of my personalities is she looking at? What's going on here? Am I right?
Exactly. Well, she did mention the Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group.
Yeah. I like that shirt because your skin looks so nice. I got to tell you, it's so soft.
I love the shirt. And I was doing this also to taunt the cat, right? I shouldn't have said it out loud because we might crash now. I mean, basically, the last time I wore this shirt, the cat took us offline. So I was wondering if there's any connection.
Yeah.
See, that's what she means by you talk to crazy people. She's like,
yeah, for me, that's like catnip. I got to tell you, I'm very attracted to that kind of craziness.
Oh boy,
Stacy Crazy is what I thrive on. That's what I live for. That's what I wake up thinking about. Stacy Crazy is my love.
It is. I have to say, like, I did not sleep well at all. Who else didn't? Well, you had already fallen asleep before Bitcoin went crazy. It was like, hanging out in that whole $58,000 thing and just like being boring and going sideways and building a base. And then Max fell asleep.
Yeah.
And then like it went berserk. And I was like, no, don't do this right before I'm about to go to bed. No. And so I stayed up like smash buying for another hour and a half and like smash buying. And then, because, I'm part of the people and I'm smash buying all-time highs. So, the fact is, then I went to bed and Rick Stoner was like, I can't believe you're going to bed. The group, the Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group rose up and it was almost like a Constantinople moment there. They were like, we're going to leave this group. We're going to storm the gates. Like, you guys, you should be a dedicated coiner and stay like, in my hand. They thought I should be, staying up for the new all-time high. So I didn't. I went to bed anyway, but I didn't sleep well because, of course, like I was eager to get up. So I just wanted that time to pass so I could wake up, have my coffee, jump into the Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group and figure out what the price of Bitcoin was. So
yeah, exactly.
Luckily, it was still the same.
It's the same from Goodfellas, if you recall. Ray Liotta was trying to deliver several kilos of cocaine while also cooking barbecue in his kitchen and driving around and paranoid that the helicopters were about to shoot at him. So pretty much whenever Bitcoin goes another $10,000 break of 50,000, 60,000, whatever, it's like Ray Liotta, Goodfellas, driving while high on cocaine. That's pretty much the experience. I'm surprised more notable coke addicts are not live streaming themselves watching the Bitcoin price. Like Twitch. You could have Twitch for Bitcoin addicts live streaming their reaction to the $10,000 hurdles
Yeah.
and seeing them go through, withdrawal pains like they're not getting enough Satoshis. And they start, freaking out. And I think that could be a really interesting program, to watch live twitching sat addicts online, each $10,000 hurdle the coin makes.
Well, they used to have BTCE, the troll box,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That was the place to go for true insanity.
Yeah, those are the early days. I mean, but those are freaks and geeks that were just naturally that way. The thing about Bitcoin is that it turns people that were normally middle class housewives like Nassim Taleb into an insane, crushing bore, right? He wrote the book
Oh my god!
Anti-Fragile,
Oh my
and
god!
then suddenly he became a whimpering little
Ah,
snotty little kid. Why do you say these things to me on Twitter? I'm rage quitting like Mike Hearn.
yeah.
Yeah,
Smash
why?
that like. Smash that like from Max Kaiser's Nassim Taleb. If you want him to do some more imitation of Nassim Taleb, why don't you go smash that like? If we get it to 250, Max will do another
More
imitation.
Nassim, more Nassim,
This
anti-fragile.
doesn't look as good without this in there.
Yeah, you should just have that as a permanent feature, as a fashion item. You're making a very bold fashion statement. Now with the two of them,
Yeah.
that's something completely different now. I mean,
It could be jumping the shark by doing two of them.
um, it reminds me of that character Lovey from the show Gilligan's Island.
I
Remember, she was married to Thurston Howell III, and I believe she wore an outfit like that quite often down at the lagoon when meeting
yeah,
up with Gilligan and the skipper.
yeah.
And actually, I read up about the actress who played Mrs. Howell in Gilligan's Island, and she was, like a lot of TV actors in the '60s. She had a brilliant theater career 20
Mm,
years earlier,
mm.
and she was also, I believe, if I remember now, quite a dancer. And she lived in this enormous home in Beverly Hills, and every morning at the crack of dawn, she would swim nude in her swimming pool, and that's
What?
how she got her
Like
day
what?
started.
Like I feel like I'm on acid now. Like what are we talking about, Mrs. Thurston Howell the Third swimming naked? Like this is
This
a
is how she
bizarre.
started her day,
How, like what does this have to do with Bitcoin?
Well,
It has to do with the orange pill, right?
well, I mean, not, yeah, it does. It's deeply ingrained in the orange pill ethos, which goes all the way back to classics of 1960s television, like the Beverly Hillbillies, for example. Remember, there was a day when Jed was shooting at some food, and then up through the ground came some bubbling crude. He said to his family, what are we going to do? And they said he'd load up the truck and they go to Beverly Hills,
Yeah. The Beverly
the
Hillbillies.
Beverly Hillbillies.
I bet you, has anybody in Generation Z here ever watched that? It was like, because back in the day, like when we didn't have like there was no such thing as a children's entertainment complex sort of
Yeah, yeah.
situation.
We'll
Then
talk about sex symbols. I mean, Ellie Mae, who was the sister of Jethro, ostensibly the daughter of Jed and Granny.
Max was like
I believe Granny. I mean, Granny was the wife of Jed, or was she
little
Jed's
Max was
mother?
just like out of control.
Was
He
she
was,
Jed? Was Granny the mother of Jed Clampett or his wife?
I don't know. I didn't watch it enough,
I
and
mean,
I
they
didn't
called
pay
her
attention
Granny.
enough.
They called her Granny.
At that age, when I was, I preferred cartoons. Like
Oh,
these
cartoons.
are
Yeah, we
old
want to
people on
talk
this black and
cartoons.
white
Hey,
thing.
don't get me started on cartoons.
Okay.
But then I loved the banker in that. That was my role model as a kid. Was the banker for the Beverly Jed Clampett. They had an incredible bank in Beverly Hills. That huge vault. I was like, that looks good to me.
So, Michael Saylor, were you surprised about MicroStrategy coming out with another convertible note? It's a private deal, so a $600 million worth. They're going to use all the money to buy Bitcoin. So again, like they're buying it. Investors are buying the bond. He's going to convert that convertible bond into Bitcoin. He doesn't think it's a bad price up here at 50,000. What do you think of this situation, Max?
Well, when your balance sheet is growing at the rate that his balance sheet is growing, remember, since
Mm.
he started buying Bitcoin, his balance sheet, I think, has doubled or it's up more than 100%. So it's not a hard sell to go out there to the market. The market's always looking for places to invest. And you're saying, look, I've got this situation here where my balance sheet is growing by 100%. It's probably the only company you're going to talk to this week that has this type of situation.
Yeah.
And the game plan is working flawlessly. We're going to sell some more notes. We're going to buy some more Bitcoin. Somebody tweeted something that I am going to find and share with the group. And I thought it was really the most interesting tweet that I read all day. And remember, I was equating the play of Michael Saylor as being very anti-Federal Reserve Bank and being similar to the George Soros
Oh yeah, yeah. You're
game
the
plan.
first one to really come up with that, and now I see a lot of people expounding on that. That's a great thing about a community. That's what I'm saying. You're open to ideas, and ideas lead to other analogies, lead to other thoughts, and a conversation and a dialogue, and we all together are like this, vibrating ideas and thoughts off each other and floating through space. And
Yeah, no
yeah.
kidding. And so this guy on Twitter, Annal, whose handle is Annal said so, SAIDSO. He said Michael Saylor is doing today with Bitcoin and the US dollar what Hugo Stinnes did with gold and the German mark before the collapse of the Weimar Republic. So he goes into some detail here. This is quoted from something. The better German industrial concerns had particular reason for satisfaction with their lot. So he's talking about what the economy during the Weimar Republic. They might look weak financially, but many possessed enormous concealed reserves because their debenture shares and other prior charged debts had been contracted on the basis of the gold mark, and gold mark equivalents of goods and services had been reserved for them. The mighty Stinnes Group, for one, was still working on gold capital. The fall in the value of the paper mark, however, had written off 98% of the gold debt to the company's gain and to the shareholders' loss. New borrowings from the Reich Bank, furthermore, from whom commercial enterprises could obtain credit at very low discount rates, even at the height of the crisis of 1923, were automatically written off in the same way. Rapid depreciation caused the real value of the repayments to be smaller than the original loans by whatever factor time and the rate of fall dictated. Hugo Stinnes himself, the richest and most powerful industrialist in Germany, whose empire over 1/6 of the country's industry had been largely built on the advantageous foundation of an inflationary economy. Right. So what we see here is some similarity. We're entering into an inflation. We're entering into a hyper money printing. The gold mark, went from a 1-to-1. What was it called? The Reichsmark, I believe, at that time,
Yeah.
went from a 1-to-1 ratio to a trillion-to-1 in gold. Now we find the evidence that inflation is really starting to show up in the U.S. We're entering into a commodity cycle, a secular bull market for commodities. We're seeing now, and this is very interesting, we're seeing the bond market looks like it's finally rolling over after close to a 40-year bull market. So interest rates are starting to move up. And we're seeing some crack up boom in some stocks. And so inflation is rearing its ugly head. Oil is now above where it was before the pandemic. Oil prices look higher, but interest rates are super low. So that's a weird dichotomy that if you can exploit. And what Michael Saylor is doing is he's essentially extracting paper money, fiat money, low cost money, 0% money,
Ah.
and he's putting it into the hardest money known in the universe, Bitcoin. And and debentures, as referenced in that quote, that this would be similar to he's selling debt as well. So these are convertible debts or convertible bonds, or it's a debt equivalent, let's call it. And so the playbook is ripped from
Hmm.
the German industrialists who were successful during Weimar Republic during a hyperinflationary period.
And I consider that it's being dubbed an attack on the currency,
It is an attack on the
like what you
currency.
describe as against the Bank of England.
It's right. It's an attack on central banks.
Yeah.
And it's a speculative attack on central banks. You're borrowing from them to attack them. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
yeah, and so this is Now, also, I think the fact that Michael Saylor has an insatiable appetite for Bitcoin, it's going to trigger people who are on the fence. Remember, he hosted that event down in Florida, and I think 1,000 or 1,500 companies were represented, and they've all got the game plan now. They've all got the playbook, you know. But the hard thing to do in life is to act, right? It's very hard to take an action. You know, you. This is the hardest thing, is to actually take an action. Most people they just can't take that action, right? So all these companies are sitting there and they go, we know we should do this, but you know, we just can't pull the trigger, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
he's doing is he's forcing them to get off the fence, basically, and to get off zero. As Mark Yusko over there at Morgan Creek Capital, you know, he came up with this idea for his institutional clients at least 4 years ago, maybe longer. Get
Mm-hmm.
off zero with Bitcoin, and he's doing, you know, he's doing quite well with that. And so now they are all basically, after the close today, they're all going to get calls. The CFOs, the CEOs, board members are going to be like, I thought we bought it. Did we buy it? We got to buy it. This guy Saylor's running away with it. You know, Elon Musk is running away with it. We can't sit on the sidelines anymore. The market's here. So you know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. He's forcing the wishy-washy types to act. Of course, that has a direct benefit to his balance sheet. And so this is a virtuous cycle. It's a virtuous cycle that's only just started, that has a long way to run. I mean, this is going to run for 10 years. I was listening to a Michael Saylor comment a few days ago, and he points out that Bitcoin over the last 10 years has been increasing in value at 200% a year. He thinks that we've got another 10 years of 200% a year growth, roughly, before you start to see some tapering. And then, you know, you see 100%, 50%, you start to see a tapering, because at that point it gets to be equivalent to gold or bigger than gold. And it goes from being, you know, store of value, medium of exchange, to a unit of account. When things start to be priced in Bitcoin, when your mortgage is priced in Bitcoin, when gold is priced in Bitcoin, when the groceries are priced in Bitcoin, when everything is priced in Bitcoin, then it will be less volatile, because it will have achieved that incredible dominant global prevalence that we all who understand what's happening here see coming. But until then, you know, we're going to have these rapid price appreciation.
Right. People are asking for the donate button. You know, there is a donate button in these super chats, but everything like you enable on YouTube, like it leaves you more vulnerable. So if you're monetized in any way, it's kind of a balancing act, because if you're monetized, then they're more likely to deplatform you, right? So because like you've upset their advertisers or whatever. So it's one is reluctant to monetize. However, if you don't monetize, then YouTube doesn't push you up in the algorithm, because they're not making any money off you. They're just hosting your stuff. So, you know, there's a kind of a little tricky balance. I do monetize the weekend, the full dose, with as little as possible, but it does, you know, it did boost the
Yeah,
view
well, yeah,
numbers.
this is exactly what I'm saying about acting. We know everything is equally balanced, in, you know, in the decision making process, right? So these corporate CFOs and CEOs are
Yes, I
saying,
get it.
"Look, we can buy Bitcoin right now. The pot on the upside, you know, we get this huge boost that the MicroStrategy people are getting. On the downside, you know, do we really want to take a position against the central bank? You know, how is that going to play from a PR perspective? Do we are we really open to, or is there any way to hedge this volatility on the balance sheet? Is the hedging strategy, is there any way to store this hedge? Can it be you know, custodian wise? But all these questions are being answered with Mellon Bank is now the biggest custodian in the world. They're now custodian funds, and all the reasons to say no are being eliminated. And of course, MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor is, like any successful businessman, is basically a salesman. And all sales begin with the word no. And that's when the sale begins, when you hear the word no, because then you begin the sale. So it's like, well, you know, you need to own Bitcoin. And the answer is no, because I don't have a suitable custodianship. Well, actually, you do because of Mellon Bank. Buy Bitcoin. No, because I'm afraid of the public relations risk that may come with owning this attack on the Fed. That's false because now the pendulum has swung and people understand that the incoming inflation has one source, the central banks, and that unless that problem is solved, we're going to have a big inflationary event, right? So you're going through the list. You're going through the list. You're going through all the no's, and eventually they run out of no's. And when they run out of no's, there's only one thing left to say, and that is yes. So every no brings you closer to a yes, right? So Michael Saylor had an idea to flip corporate America onto Bitcoin. And when he started talking about Bitcoin, what is it, less than a year ago, he came out of the box like frickin' Secretariat, you know, or Manowar. Like the guy was like ready to go. He had thought through this thing thoroughly, thoughtfully, conscientiously. And, he's been like, yeah, boom, boom, boom. This is he's got a game plan. The guy is not going to be stopped, this is going a lot higher, and there's more micro sailors out there. They're going to reveal themselves, and it's just going to be an orgy of buying at the Bitcoin bid, never-ending, ceaseless acquisition of coins until the price is in the six figures. Higher it goes. It's not for nothing that $1 million Bitcoin would equal 1 penny in the Satoshi. You think that's an accident? It's not. Hello?
Right. I see, and that was an amazing speech by Max. That's why I have the title of this Microdosing the Holy Roman Empire, because somebody will choose instead to engage based on him mentioning Secretariat and Man of War. They'll be like, well, actually, there was a better horse. And actually, it was like that's the point they'll get from it, of whether or not Secretariat or Man o' War was the better horse.
Well, look, Secretariat is a super horse, and nobody in the equine industry of horse racing, horse breeding, and horse farming and horse studding,
Horse farming?
you know, will argue differently. I would say that nobody will suggest a better horse than Secretariat. Possibly Man of War, but Man of War came from a different era. It's different, kind of different.
Yeah, that was weird how they really, really used to handicap those the likes of Secretariat back in the day. They would put weights on them, right? Because based on how fast they were, to make the other horses like give them a chance, they would put some weights on the horse. Right?
Yeah. There's a whole bit. I never understood that.
It's
I
so
don't get it.
crazy.
Just let the horse run. But Man of War would win races. I haven't looked at this in a few years. But from what I remember, he would win races by like 30 or 40 lengths or something absolutely crazy. It's an amazing story. There's a film about horse racing that is one of the most beautiful tales ever told in film, and I can't remember the name of it.
Oh my God. I knew you were going to do that. That's our specialty.
I'm going to look
Last
it up.
time you couldn't remember Amelie.
Amelie, yeah.
Because it's better to not even suggest anything. Because when you went Madeleine, it was like, it's hard to get Madeleine out of your head, right? And you start to think of such a common name, French name of Madeleine. But
yeah, but
smash the like button.
With the thing is, you start a sentence and
somebody's asking if it's Black Beauty.
No, it wasn't Black Beauty. It's called the Black Stallion. The Black Beauty. This is like one of Mickey.
People are saying Seabiscuit is better.
Seabiscuit. Fuck Seabiscuit. No, the Black Stallion had Mickey Rooney. It's one of his last films. And it's just a beautiful film. There's a shipwreck. This guy, his father and his young son are on this ship, and they're in the middle of a storm, and the ship sinks.
BoJack.
And there's only two survivors, this stallion and this little boy,
Yeah.
and they wash
Oh,
up on
I
the
watched. I
beach.
did watch that. I did watch that.
Right. So the first half of the film, the little boy is like getting to know the horse, and then he learns to ride the horse, and it's between animal and child,
Man in Nature.
man
Remember,
and
I
nature.
told you this.
He
These.
then they then he enters the big time world of professional horse racing, and the kid ends up riding the horse. But yeah, it's just a great story. I believe it's Zoetrope Studios, which was
Hmm.
Francis Ford Coppola. When he created Zoetrope briefly, they made a few pictures. I don't think it was that studio was ultimately all that successful, but
So there was a big storm down in Texas, and that was pretty cool. Like the images and videos coming out of from Austin are pretty pretty shocking. It doesn't really ever snow there, but they got like 6 or 7 inches. Some of those photos looked even like as deep as a foot. It looked like New England to
yeah,
me. So the gas lines, the wind turbines, they all froze up, and they had millions of people without any electricity at all. And Adam Curry claims that he didn't have energy for 15 hours, and that he claims that Orange Pill Podcast was their main source of energy, of heat, main source of heat for he and his wife.
yeah, because he was burning it. No, you're supposed to listen to it. But yeah, I saw that photo. He and his wife were there, and all the power went out. Last I checked, it was for 15 hours.
15 hours. I mean,
Right.
really crazy. It shows you how like vulnerable all our grids and systems are, and um, that you have to be prepared, right? You got to be prepared for good times. You got to be prepared for bad times.
Yeah, I saw Marshall Long, the miner down there near. I think he's near Austin, isn't he?
That sure is true.
And he was out there in the snow grilling up some steaks. They will
In
not
the
be
snow?
stopped. Yeah, the snow was blowing outside, and he was out there like,
Well,
Yahoo! Got my steaks.
to be fair, he is born and raised Texas, but he had lived in Boston for quite a long time.
Oh yeah.
So, this isn't maybe as cold as you get used to in Boston.
Oh yeah. No, it's crazy. And but a lot of people moved to Austin recently from California, thinking that they were in for some, mild weather, and they got some serious snow shock. They got snow
I
shock.
bet
They're
that would be a shock to
I
arrive
just
there.
moved here and it's freaking snow shock. How did this happen? You missold me. You told me everything was great, and now I got here and I'm buried under snow.
Mike Maloney just tweeted at us thinking that we're microdosing his Holy Roman Empire episode of Money, his Money
Oh,
series.
really? Really? Wow. Well, that's a great series, though.
It's actually really fascinating, but Mike Maloney series, but to try to like figure out all of that, the Roman Empire and all the flows of peoples and control, and which was part of the Roman Empire, which was not part of the empire, and then you realize that a lot of like what we refer to today, like we didn't add these names or call them until modern times or more recent times, that they themselves didn't call this. So it's all
Oh,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
all very complicated, and you can get lost.
Well, like they don't call it the Dark Ages anymore because that's considered to be pejorative. So they call it more like the Middle Ages, essentially.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate, as Giacomo Zucco brought up when we interviewed him, that there's debate about how dark it was. But I do call the last 50 years the Fiat Dark Ages. So I believe that will hold true.
That's going to be 100 years from now. People will still use Stacy's
They'll read it.
nomenclature.
Yeah, they'll read
say,
about me in history
Stacy,
books.
the Fiat Dark Ages. This chick nailed it. She was out there calling it every turn in real time. They call her now the Nostradamus of the early 21st century, stacking sats.
So if you want to,
now worshipped in cultures all over the galaxy. They have an effigy of Stacy, and they pray every day for good luck, and it works. It works not only in this universe, but in the parallel universes as well, the multiverse.
and this is what they do, right?
They do this. This is part of the religious fervor, the religious, the religious rites. You must do this with your glasses, and speaking of Gilligan's Island, you had, of course, the other women on the show were Ginger and Marianne.
Mm-hmm.
So Ginger was the movie star, and Marianne was like the farm girl. And it's funny because when I first started watching Gilligan's Island when I was maybe 4 years old, I was naturally attracted to Ginger, the movie star. But as I got older and it went into reruns, I started really relating more to Marianne as a brunette. I figured, Ginger was a redhead, even though the show's in black and white, but you figure she's probably got red hair. And in fact, Tina Louise, who played Ginger, has red hair. And, it just gives you an insight into how tastes evolve over the years, as you know.
That was a cool story, bro.
Yeah.
So, right. I'm sure like 75% of our audience has never seen Gilligan's Island. But what I want to say is, are you guys up for smash buying with me now? First, I guess I should look at the price and see what the price
Yeah,
is.
it doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't really
You never
matter,
look at the
but I like
price.
to know.
I never look at the price.
Oh,
it's
it's a good price. We're buying on the dip, right?
Buy the dip.
48,000.
Oh yeah, 48,000. Not exactly.
I'm gonna smash buy. Let me see what people are saying they're gonna do.
Yeah, do it. Do the smash buy.
Told you don't smash buy. 48,300. Thank you, Zip Zap Zop.
Oh yeah, Zip Zap Zop. He's a good guy.
Laughing out loud. She cool story, bro. Her man. Cool story. I've never seen Gilligan's Isle. Born too late. How high are you guys? Coconut cream pie.
Coconut cream pie.
Somebody from Botswana. Your Generation X is showing. Yeah, Max is Boomer.
Yeah,
I'm Generation X. Satoshi is hiding in the cave on Gilligan's Island.
Totally.
Okay, lots of people are ready to smash by. If you turn off opening live chat selected, you smash like more. I don't know what that means, but that's a fact, Jack. Uh-oh. So I'm gonna smash by, but first, before I smash by, I want to see some smash likes first, and I also want to say Peter Schiff has some quite amusing morning tweets today when he woke up to $50,000 Bitcoin, and everybody had, of course, tweeted at him all his tweets over the past few years saying Bitcoin will never go to 50,000,
right?
But gold will definitely go to 5,000, and gold will go to 5,000 before Bitcoin ever goes to 50,000. He was saying that back when Bitcoin was like, $10,000.
Yep.
So here we have 50,000. He's like, okay, so I was wrong. And you know what? I have to admit that maybe, this is my Peter Schiff voice, that maybe that it's going to go to 100,000.
Right.
But it's going to go to zero then. Even if it goes to 100,000, it's going to go to zero.
Right. That's right. Peter Schiff. You don't understand. You don't understand. The price of Bitcoin is going to go to zero. You don't understand. What you're saying is nonsense because the price of gold has actual value. These cufflinks are made of actual gold. If I'm struck on a cruise ship in the middle of the Mediterranean and I need a quick few dollars to crash the buffet, I can sell these gold cufflinks to some geriatric retired couple in cabin 47B for enough money to buy the coleslaw that I need to feed myself for the rest of this journey. You can't do that with Bitcoin. No one will take my Bitcoin in the middle of the ocean. No one will take my Bitcoin. It has no utility value. It has no intrinsic value. Don't you understand? You're talking nonsense. You don't understand. It's absolutely nonsense. That's completely wrong. It's completely nonsense.
I could dance with my gold on the ship, on the lonely ship.
Really?
Because nobody will talk to me because I keep on talking about gold.
Right.
So I'm dancing with my gold. Right. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it's comical, right? Like he's becoming like the episode title, Microdosing the Holy Roman Empire. He's just like, he's there for the trolls. He's there for the engagement. He's like focusing on the wrong thing. Like, it's absurd, right? It's $1 trillion asset now, and it's about to eat silver. Yep. And he's still stuck on these like old stories, and he's only just trying to get us to title a show after him.
The thing is he is kind of stuck, and which is weird. Like a Nassim Taleb, he fell out, and now he's on the wrong side of this debate. But Peter just refuses to really concede. right? Like if it were a fight, the ref would have stopped it because the fight is over, and on a technical knockout, you're done.
Yeah.
Like I've been saying this to Peter Schiff for 10 years, since it was $10 a Bitcoin, as he admits recently in an interview. And and people say, oh, you should debate him, but like, Mike Tyson shouldn't. That kid that was just on YouTube, Lily, who did
The 3-year-old,
3 years old, talking about Bitcoin. I mean, you wouldn't want to see Mike Tyson in the ring with Lily, right? That wouldn't be a great fight. It would take one punch from Mike Tyson and Lily would be out cold. Definitely Mike
Right, but
Tyson would win
if
that.
she got into the ring with Peter Schiff, she would knock him out with her arguments.
Right, but I'm saying that you don't want me in the ring with Peter Schiff because I've already knocked him out like 7 times. So it's like at some point you got to say, no, it's cruel to continue the battering as
But
it
I would
is.
love to see Lily in the ring with him, like debating Bitcoin.
Yeah,
'Cause
Lily would do a good job.
I
Yeah.
think she would kick his ass, and her point about Skittles is pretty good.
What was her point about Skittles?
She said she likes Bitcoin and Skittles.
Really? I hadn't thought about that.
I thought that was funny. Okay, everybody's ready to smash by. We're over 500 likes, so I think we're ready to go. What should I do? So give me guidance. I'll smash by $500 or $1,000. Tell me which one.
Yeah, which one?
Which one? Tell me. Answer the question. Answer the question. Maybe I should look at the answers and see. Da 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 da. And then
this is brought to you by Swan. Swan Smash by Bitcoin.
Well, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go smash by on swanbitcoin.com/orange pill. I know
Stacy smashes on her Swan.
It's available for Americans. You have to be a U.S. resident. They do have a swanbitcoin.com/private if you're overseas, but there's a very large, purchase required in order to make it possible for them.
$50,000.
No. In fact, it's over $100,000. So don't listen to Max. Listen to Stacy whenever data is required.
Let's get the latest data. Stacy's got the latest data. My data was out of date.
Okay, everybody's saying $1,000. Go big or go home, Stacy.
Yeah, go big or go home. Do it.
Okay.
Do it like Lily.
Smash
it like Lily. Smash
Where's
it
my
like
Skittles?
Lily.
Where's my Skittles?
You need Skittles, Lily.
Okay, I'm gonna
Send
buy
us Skittles, Lily.
I'm gonna buy. Okay, luckily it's filled in automatically with. I guess it might have been reading our conversation.
It always has 1,000 as the default amount. It's the default amount is 1,000. It always says 1,000.
I get 48,473 is the price.
All right, how many Satoshis is that when they tell you? That's always interesting.
Okay, I'll give you a rough guide. I think people say you're not supposed to say the whole thing, but let's see. It's going. Yeah,
don't give them the exact Satoshi. That could be an OPSEC nightmare.
Yeah. So yeah, it's basically 0.2. So in Bitcoin.
Right. 0.2. Well done. Well done. How do you feel? How do you feel now?
I'm dancing. See, like we get balloons. Like when you buy gold, do you get balloons like that? No.
Is it like a post-coital euphoria?
Yeah. I'm dancing with my Bitcoin right now.
Are you dancing on the ceiling with your Bitcoin? Jesus.
I told people I was going to tell them a story from the early days of the pandemic that's really funny that you don't even know about. But
really? Does it involve Bitcoin?
No, it involves like a surreal sort of crazy thing.
Really?
But
cereal like Captain Crunch cereal? Cheerios?
Surreal.
Oh, surreal.
Surreal.
Oh, you mean like that artist with like the crazy mustache?
Like this episode. Yeah, like Dali.
Dali! I am Dali! Dali!
He was pretty crazy. Like
awesome.
He would have liked Orange Pill Podcast.
Yeah, he would have been a guest on Orange Pill Podcast. Salvador Dali.
Smash. 0.2, not 0.2. Yeah, exactly. About 0.2. That's like a food dance. What? But way better, Stacy. What's a food dance? What's a food dance? I'm just I'm learning new stuff here.
I mentioned Captain Crunch cereal. What cereal were you having, as a child?
I liked cream of wheat. I didn't have cereal.
Were you in the hospital?
I liked cream of wheat.
That's a hospital food. Cream of wheat. That's what they serve you. I had cream of wheat when I had my appendix out.
She's saying it wrong again. Saying what wrong? Stop it. Leave me alone. Stop harassing me in
Why
the
are you
comments.
harassing Stacy in the comments?
It's 0.02. Lucky Charms. Smash that.
Yeah,
like
Lucky
everyone.
Charms is
Choco
pretty good.
Cocoa.
Pretty good.
Somebody said Choco Pops, which I don't think exists.
Choco Pops?
Choco. Choco Pop? I thought it was Cocoa Pops.
It's Cocoa Puffs. I think Cocoa Puffs is, and then one of those other, like General Mills or somebody else came up with Cocoa Choco Pops. I think competed with Cocoa Puffs. You know, Cocoa Puffs had an iconic advertisement, "Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs," with
Second
a
smash,
bird,
yeah.
a cuckoo bird. You know, and it left an indelible mark. You know, which I can see that ad in my mind's eye right now. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I can see it.
Everybody wants to know what cream of wheat is. Everybody's gonna have to try it, right? So I want to tell a story because it kind of relates to this whole, crash of the fiat dark ages, the crash of these institutions, the authorities, the organizing principles of our life have disappeared and crashed, and into the crashing financial system in 2008. It started. And we saw that Satoshi published the Bitcoin white paper in October of 2008. And then the Genesis block happened in January 3rd, 2009. So, that was an innovation delivered at the time that was needed. And it took many years. Like, as Max had mentioned, Michael Saylor found Bitcoin in 2013 and he dismissed it and he said no. And a lot of people at the time, we didn't know what we had. I've used the metaphor before where we have a masterpiece over our kitchen sink or the stove and we're cooking for 30, 40 years. Dust, food particles, grease, like accumulating on this masterpiece that we find out. Well, so like early in this pandemic and after Max and I had arrived back home from all our travels and we had as the pandemic was spreading everywhere, right? We were in Mexico, Argentina, Las Vegas, Austin, Los Angeles. We went everywhere, right? Right in those days up to it. And we kept on thinking like we're like one step ahead of this pandemic. And then when we were at LAX, our last flight, we're like, okay, we're out of here. We're leaving LAX. Like everybody in that airport was just sneezing or coughing. Like you're aware of it, but like everybody's just like, achoo! And you're like, oh, okay, great, thanks. Hopefully there's no COVID in here. But like, so we got home February 28th, we're here. And then like at the end of March, I got this thing where like my hands started swelling up every morning. My fingers, like the whole thing, like huge. Like I couldn't wear any rings at all. And but all the doctors, you couldn't go to the hospital except for the emergency room, and they were only basically accepting COVID or like extreme, genuine emergencies. So I just sat there, and like it kept on getting bigger and bigger. Every morning, my hands would just be really, really swollen, and I had no idea what was going on. So and there was nothing I could do. So I'm just sitting there, like waiting, and like, so we're like April, May, and it just is like getting worse, really painful, like burning pain. And then so I ordered some CBD. I tried that and it did nothing, right? CBD does nothing for me. I've tried CBD gummies, nothing. So because of that medical marijuana is supposed to help pain so much. And I was like, okay, let's order the CBD, maybe it will help all the pain, which like it was tolerable during the day, but it was like really at night I was really tired because I so much swelling would happen in the night, and it was like I would wake up in a lot of pain. So I was like, I need something that could get me through that. So I ordered the CBD. That didn't work. And then a certain friend of mine told me about this thing called THC8. And I was like, okay, I ordered this THC.
Whoa, THC?
Yeah, it's the other ingredient. So, marijuana has basically CBD and THC. Like North Carolina, like you can't buy any marijuana products, but you can buy them separately.
But right? Tetrahydrocannabinol.
Yeah, THC.
That's the active ingredient.
But you can buy it. You could buy it on the internet here, right? So I bought some to just a gummy, and I thought, okay, maybe this will help because the CBD didn't.
Right.
So my friend, let's say she's bloated, like she said, like it was pretty strong that she felt, and that she just takes half. So I cut it in half, this gummy, and then cut it in half again, and took a little bit. And 45 minutes later, it wasn't like doing anything at all. So I was like, okay, I'll take the other bit of the half. So then we started watching a movie like before bed.
Yeah.
And like an hour into it was one of those Ken Burns films.
Oh yeah.
And like an hour into it, it was like I literally felt like a G-force. Like I felt like boom, boom. And I was like this. Like I was like, whoa. And like the room started going like flipping around. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, I hadn't told you that I took this stuff. So I was like, uh-oh, how do I explain to Max like that what's going on? So like when the film stopped, I was like, okay, so I'm gonna go sit on the sofa for a bit and read. And I was like trying to like grab onto Earth, and it was just like flying around. And then you fell asleep, and I was like, I had to go to the bathroom, and I ended up having to hold the wall because everything in the room was moving so much. And I was like, holy shit, what did I take? And it was like midnight now, and I was like, oh my God, we have to go to the emergency room. How do I tell? How do I wake up Max and tell him I've lost my mind? So I was like too afraid to wake you up to tell you I've lost my mind, and because I took a gummy bear, and I thought, oh my God, like it was like you wouldn't believe, like this loud rush, like the noise in my head felt like I was going through a wind tunnel. I was like, whoa. And I was like,
wow.
It was like, and they sell this over the internet, right? So I thought like it can't be harmful or anything, but oh my God.
That reminds me when I accidentally smoked angel dust.
What?
Oh yeah, that was a bad trip.
Yeah, well, this was me like trying to take care of a medical condition that I was unable to address because the medical system was entirely shut down.
Right.
So I was actually just trying to stop some pain and go to sleep.
Yeah, you made it come and talk you down. You're having a bad trip. Baby.
No, my friend Madge Weinstein, I got on Telegram with her.
She talked you down?
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on? I'm flying all over the place. She's like, oh yeah, you're just like, take something to calm down, basically. And I was like, I thought marijuana makes you calm down. She's like, no, that's the CBD side. You only have the THC, which causes anxiety.
You're tripping your tits off.
Oh my God. It was the scariest thing. Like it was the scariest moment when I Googled it. Okay. I went up and said, what the hell is this thing? THC 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it said, the jar of the gummy bear said take 1 to 3 a day.
No way.
Yes, it does. I'll go get it. And it says 1 to 3 a day. So I thought taking half, it can't like make you lose your mind, right?
Really.
So I looked it up, and it said it takes 2 hours to have any effect.
Kick in.
So like when I took that little a quarter of it and I waited 45 minutes, that was too soon. And then they said it takes up to 12 hours to disappear. Still, when I woke up in the morning, that
job interview.
Oh my God! Like when I woke up in the morning, I was still like like my head, like I was like holding on to things, trying to stay up. But like this is medicine practice, and if you go on YouTube, you have people who show you how to like pull out your own tooth or do sort of stuff.
That's right.
Like, this is me like medicating for a situation that I couldn't get. I had emailed my doctor who never responded because they weren't in the office.
Yeah, well, speaking of appendectomies, the story of that guy up in Antarctica who performed an appendectomy on himself.
Yeah.
Right. So I
think it was a Russian dude.
Dude. He surgically opened himself up and removed his appendix. And of course, you can't knock yourself out because you have to perform the surgery. So he did it essentially without anesthetic. I mean, that's a guy who's would be a hodler of Bitcoin. Peter Schiff wouldn't talk him out of his Bitcoin. If he can take out your own appendix without anesthesia, you're a hodler. Speaking of hodlers, American Hoddler.
Yeah, he's back on Twitter.
It's American Hoddler 3. So he tweeted today one of those tweets like how it began and how it's going. And he shows his account where he was a buyer of GBTC, I guess.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Ago, and where it is today. And this is like a fantastic story.
It's up 10x.
He was down 40 or 50 or 60% at one point, and then he got a 10x return on it. The numbers are big. Check out American Hoddle's Twitter account. These are big numbers. It's real, folks. I mean, the guy's you're talking millions of dollars there, just by stacking sats. Like I think we established he's a millennial, so he's a young guy.
He's like at the he might even be an older Gen Z. So he's
and they by virtue of this protocol, he's grabbed on to the life.
Zip zap.
He's not letting it go.
Zip zap zop knows you so well because
him and his wife.
Zip zap zop knows that you lived in Harlem, knows that you lived in Manhattan in the 70s and 80s. So he said, Max is like, I see your THC story and raise you some embalming fluid.
Yeah, we've all been there. That's PCP is what angel dust is what got James Brown so fucked up when he tried to shoot his wife.
No, and then the cops.
And then the cops. He was shooting at the cops, and then they all wanted his autograph. Basically, that's how fucking bad James Brown was. This guy was really, don't get me started on James Brown, but nevertheless, the PCP or angel dust. I mean, remember Gil Scott-Heron wrote a song, Angel Dust. My favorite from the 70s, Gil Scott-Heron, the godfather of rap. He and the Last Poets, they set the stage. You youngsters out there in the your hip hop, you got to listen to the man, Gil Scott-Heron. The revolution will not be televised, of course, is very well known. That's his song. But, there's so many classics. The bass line on it's about the it's Reagan. I'm gonna get the Reagan. I'll think of it in a moment. I'm having one of those stories again. I can't remember.
American Hoddle is suspended. He's always suspended.
But he's American Hoddle 3 now.
He's always back.
He's back.
He's always fighting.
It's American Hoddle 3.
Don't worry about American Hoddle.
Post photos of his wife, and they're having their good time, and I like to see that. That's why it's good stuff. That's what it's all about.
Right.
You got your relationship and your Bitcoin. That's what, and your gun. That's it. That's what it's all about.
Okay. Well, I haven't had much time to tell you to smash like. So I would tell you to smash like now so that once we hit 750 of them, we will. That's Swan Bitcoin.
Ask me any question about the 1970s. I'll know. I'll know the answer.
Smash like, and then we will.
Olivia Newton-John.
We will leave at 750 smash likes.
Saturday Night Fever.
But
Iggy Pop.
Send Max some questions about the 70s.
Midnight Cowboy.
If you have.
Taxi Driver.
I saw the New York Dolls were actually. They were nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I guess it's their first time.
Oh, thank God.
They're nominated this year, so you could go and vote for them, by the way.
In Detroit? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? David Johansen?
I think it's in Cincinnati.
We were there.
Or Cleveland.
You're right. Cleveland, Ohio. You're right, Cleveland. New York Dolls, some say, they were, kind of invented punk in a lot of ways.
Well, they did because, of course, wasn't Malcolm McLaren their manager? And then he went from there and formed the Sex Pistols.
He went from there to do the Sex Pistols, yeah.
Yeah.
And, what's interesting is that show that was on HBO, I believe, called Vinyl. And it's about rock and roll in the 60s and 70s, kind of starts off in the 70s. And the opening scene of the first show, it's a New York Dolls show. And then Chaz Palminteri is the actor, and he plays like this record executive. And it was like co-producer, executive producer Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones. And kind of bombed. Oh, yeah. Martin Scorsese was another executive director. And that show kind of bombed. It was very, very sad. My expectations were very high to see it. But
Keith Richards, people are asking about Keith Richards.
What about Keith
Because
Richards?
we lived in the Villefranche-sur-Mer. That's where Max and I met. And Keith Richards and, of course, all the Rolling Stones lived there just at the end of the bay
Yeah.
in
I
Villefranche-sur-Mer.
think they made Exile on Main Street. They recorded
Yeah.
it in Villefranche-sur-Mer. In the name of the estate, we can look it up, but it's this huge sprawling estate that they stayed in. And they got everyone in that town, Villefranche-sur-Mer, hooked on heroin. And when we were living there in the period of 2003 or so, it was the last person who had been hooked on heroin from the Rolling Stones living there had died. And that was a bit of a gossip in town. The other thing about the Villefranche-sur-Mer is it has the deepest port in the Mediterranean.
Nelcott.
Nelcott is the name of the estate.
16-room mansion. And it's also, it's important, like, you know, they didn't get everybody hooked on heroin. The people got hooked on heroin because what did Mick Jagger say in that great documentary, Devil? I forget the documentary recently that the Stones did, where most of it's voiceover from Mick Jagger, and Mick Jagger said everybody wanted to be like Keith, but only Keith was Keith. So, you know, Keith could take heroin all day long and still perform. I think Mick had told this story where, you know, they were swimming in the bay there out in Villefranche-sur-Mer, and Keith, where the guys found a container from World War II, which had stuff in it, just like liquids and needles. And Keith injected it. He just like didn't know what it was, but he just took it, right? And he survived, but they don't know what the hell it was that he put in him.
Yeah.
But that everybody like wanted to be like Keith.
Yeah.
But whatever, they didn't do the deal with the devil, right?
Right. They didn't do the deal with the devil. He and Willie Nelson, you know, he's another guy. He's indestructible.
Yeah.
Those two, they're never gonna die.
But somebody, I think Max loves Bad Company's first album.
They do? What track on that
Why
album
the hell
do
do people
love?
talk like this?
What track? What track on Bad Company's first album are you referring to that I love? This is what I want to know.
What is it? Where is he?
Tell me the track.
It might have been somebody that just jumped in to leave that comment and then go to another live
That's a
chat.
random comment. That's completely random.
Keith snorted his dad.
He did. He snorted his dad. The ashes of his dad.
Max, what about famous country singer smoked a joint on top of Jimmy Carter's White House?
I know, that's Willie Nelson.
That's Willie Nelson.
That's Willie Nelson. Yeah, we know that.
Who doesn't love Bad Company's first album?
Well, what track on that album are you referring to? You know, just this is, you know, like,
Max hates Jethro Tull.
It does. Jethro Tull sucks. You know, every time he comes on classic vinyl, I turn it off. I don't care how much I pay to Sirius XM every year to get that shit in my car. I'm not listening to Jethro Tull. Aqualung is an overrated, bloated piece of shit.
Look at this incel in the group, Austin Carl. Real foul seeing Stacy attacking teachers on Twitter. Okay.
What?
Okay.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Here. I got some. You give him the orange shoe.
Okay. I'm gonna ban this guy, but from the group, but he could still comment.
All right, let's get Plucky out for this. Go ahead. I want to see you fuck this guy up real good. Let's check it out. This incel. Let's go incel hunting with Stacy. Incel hunting with Stacy on the Plucky Show.
But, I have to get some co-editors in here.
What? Plucky needs something to sit on. Let's get Plucky a stage. There he is. There's Plucky.
Okay. We hit that user. So, I mean, I feel like this, okay, you know, I told you my pandemic story that all the hospitals are closed and stuff like that. But when you look at, like, at least half my family, okay, my aunt, she's a nurse in the neonatal unit. So she's there delivering premature babies. What if she had said, she's 60 years old, this is too risky. We're going on strike. I have a nurses union. We're not going to do this because, okay, a delivery room does not have circulating air, right? It's all hot in there. The woman's screaming. There's all these people around. So why does my aunt have to keep on doing that? When I go to Whole Foods and there's this woman, Sonia, there, she's 51, she's overweight, she's Latina. all the marginalized groups in America in that one person.
Why?
And yet, why does she have to go to work every day?
Why?
Look at the data. There's a lot of studies out that thousands and thousands and thousands of grocery store workers have had COVID because they have to go to work.
Oh yeah.
So should what would have happened? What do you think would happen? Where do you think we would be today, right now, almost a year later, if all the supermarket workers didn't show up? So
terrible.
it would be horrible, right? So I just think like um, I I don't understand why why we can't open the schools, especially everybody's being paid. They're all being paid, but in particular, the the poorest children amongst us are the ones that are getting hurt the most because the private schools have remained open. So the private schools are all those kids are still being educated. So this wealth and income gap, but especially the wealth gap and the power gap, the amount of power that the elites hold is enormous. And here you're saying that 15, 20 years in the future, the kids that are 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, that the most crucial in terms of development, socializing, learning how to interact with other kids and stuff like that. So the fact that the poorest kids are the ones that are hurt the most because they don't have stay-at-home moms, or now the moms have to either quit their job at the grocery store, say, and work to stay because they have a kid at home and nobody could just leave their kid at home, so they have to leave their job. Like, it just seems like it's a setup for a huge deaths down the road, as we covered on Kai's report, that study from, I think it was the UN or the World Health Organization, which showed that there will be shortened lives because of this.
A question.
Yep.
So, what was the comment? The woman was saying something about teachers. They shouldn't go to school.
Well, there are the guy's probably a teacher. Okay, so the teachers get angry with me on Twitter when I say that they should be teaching these kids, because right now what's going on is that they in Chicago and Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York, all the major cities, the teachers unions, they don't even want to go in September. They're saying it's not safe enough to plan on opening schools in September. In the meantime, China, Thailand, all those schools in Asia, they're all open, and they've been open since August, since the summer, for their kids the same age to be going to school. So I say, well, I don't understand. Tell me, why is it okay for Sonia at Whole Foods, who's been there since March? She was there in April. She was there in May, June. Why is it okay for her to go and not for a teacher who makes 5, 6, 7 times what she makes, has benefits and all that sort of stuff? Like, why is that acceptable? I don't understand. And they're like, why do you want the teachers to die? And I'm like, well, why do you want the supermarket worker to die? And because they don't want to go through the natural thing, right? Because if the supermarkets close, everybody starves to death. People are going to riot. They're going to storm. They're going to start raiding buildings and homes and houses, and there will be just utter collapse. So that's what basically we're not having these open, honest conversations and debates about. They're just like shouting at people with social justice warrior sort of stuff and saying, "Oh, you want to kill the teachers? Okay, well, let's say we don't go in September. Is next year at this time? Is 2 years okay for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds to not go to school? How about 3? What if it mutates and there are mutations, or it evolves so it no longer the vaccine doesn't work? Is 5 years okay? Like, at what point when are we able to discuss it and say, okay, we're never going to meet in person again, and let's just change everything and send everybody free money. Fuck the supermarkets. We'll have some, the Marines deliver food parcels every once in a while to people. Like what's the plan? That's what I want to know. What's their plan? What's their vision of what happens?
Well, the teachers, I think they have a union, don't they?
They do have, most of them. The private schools don't have unions. A lot of grocery stores have unions as well. The workers are unionized. But
Whole Foods, though, there's no unions there.
But other supermarkets do, and they're working. But if they try, like the meat packers, let's look at the meat packers. The meat packers decided not to show up at work. Some of them, because that was the ground zero of the most infection rate, highest infection rate in the early days, because of the unique environment of a meat packing plant. What happened? They were ordered by the federal government to show up. They had to. Why them? Why not? Why didn't teachers be brought onto that assembly line? Like why were those people expendable and teachers aren't? Like what makes one class of people expendable where the others aren't?
Well, I think the teachers don't want to. If they can,
Okay, speak normal.
what? Oh, okay. I think the teachers, if they can game the system by claiming we're going to die if we go to school and talk to our union rep, why not? I
Well,
mean, the people in the meat packing plant, it's mostly immigrant labor, and they have no leverage whatsoever.
yeah.
The part-time workers or the minimum wage workers at Whole Foods have no leverage whatsoever. But teachers still are a group in our economy that have collective bargaining to some degree, and so they see a
Stacy,
chance.
risk your own life before you risk someone else's. Okay, meet me in Chapel Hill at the Whole Foods. You tell that to Sonia. You tell that to her that she deserves, that she should risk her life so that you have food, so that you do not have a societal collapse around you. So like why these people just talk like that? Like they don't say
Well,
what is unique about teachers versus these supermarket workers.
because that's what I'm
It's
saying.
classist.
Yeah, but I'm saying is that we all are, just going for the headlines here, right? I mean, if there was a sense of shared responsibility and shared sacrifice for a greater community and a greater good, there would be an intelligent adult conversation about who has to do what, when, where, how do we compensate, how do we plan for this. But we don't. We have a whole portion of the economy that's out off the grid completely, minimum wage workers working 2 or 3 jobs, the working poor, as it's
Yeah.
called, who have been marginalized and basically their fate they have is dire. Then you have above that you've got, let's say, teachers would have some collective bargaining. They're in the economy. Above that, there's this huge gap before you get to bankers and lawyers who are gaming the system, who are extracting wealth from everybody else in the system, everybody in the middle that's now being eviscerated, and certainly at the bottom, they're being gutted. So, teachers are just hanging on by a thread. So basically, if they are, because there's a societal dysfunction and there's no sense of collective good, they are going to game the system in the same way that they see the bankers and lawyers gaming the system. Bankers and lawyers will put out a message that, you have to bail us out right now, or the economy will collapse. They're constantly extorting money from the economy. So teachers, essentially, this is like a soft extortion from lower wage folks who have collective bargaining and some leverage, who are saying, we don't want to die, so therefore just pay us. Okay. I mean, as far as game theory goes, that works. But, and I can understand that position, because we're living in a society where there is no greater good. There is no sense of purpose. There is no sense of the common good and a common destination. So it makes everybody, it brings out the worst in everybody. So
Yeah,
that
I
person
think
making
that's the
that
worst.
comment
Like
is they're bringing out the worst in that person. And who's suffering the most? That person. They're feeling all ugly and gross inside. They don't want to have to say these ugly things, but nevertheless, we're at that state
but
in
that
this
person,
society.
but most public, if you're in a union and a teacher, you're being paid well. Like I have teacher family members, one who is a superintendent of schools in Connecticut, like a huge swathe of it. They're on pensions that are over 100,000 annually, so they're doing super well. They have great jobs. I think there is a sort of snobbery that you see, and it's part of that whole cable news hate system where there are certain classes of workers that tend to vote Republican and certain classes of workers that tend to vote Democrat. Union teachers are obviously all Democrats, right? So you know that. So that's I think why they're also targeted as these are somehow like
Right. Well,
the way people will shout so hard and call you some sort of neo-Nazi willing to have these people die for, because to teach some children. And you're like, well, I don't, that argument doesn't make any sense, right? Because you refuse, they won't answer about the grocery store workers. They refuse to answer if you say, what, so they're expendable. And like, they won't
right.
say, they refuse to answer because we no longer have honest, open dialogue and debate. Like maybe these supermarket workers should be sacrificed, but maybe they should have higher benefits for it. Who knows? Like maybe if because we don't have schools anymore, maybe the taxpayer transfers the salaries to those who are showing up at the grocery stores. Like there's other ideas.
Right. Well, okay. The stratification of society is clearly on display
Into groups of victims, like who's
in
more of a
groups of
victim,
victims.
rather than, and that's where your power lies, and that's a gross dark ages,
It
the
is gross.
fiat dark ages. It's
Now
like,
that on the teacher side, though, I mean, what we pay teachers to do is to deliver more than they're paid to do, right? So the teacher,
yeah, yeah.
unlike let's say grocery worker, the grocery worker is somewhat interchangeable. A good teacher, however, is not interchangeable. They are impacting the lives of the next generation, and in many times, people's entire lives are changed from something that from a teacher, from even elementary school through high school through university. So they we have this quid pro quo with teachers that they are in fact sacrificing something to be educators. They're availing themselves of a unique quality of empathy that they have
You would
to
think they have empathy.
right with their students, and they're paid. They're not paid like a lawyer or a stockbroker. They do get the summers off, right? You get 2 months off. You get incredible pensions if you're a public teacher. I mean, there is a
New York State,
you get
especially,
something,
that's what.
there is a their deal being struck there. But as far as in this particular instance, what's ironic is that the the crucible, if you will, the storehouse of knowledge, and it should be within the school system. So the teachers themselves should be able to express themselves in more articulately than simply throwing out these epithets and getting involved in partisan politics as on display in this instance.
Well, just look at we've talked about that fourth turning chart of like the hard times leads to strong men,
Yeah.
leads to weak men, it leads to good times, leads to weak men. That's the thing. It's like that's where we're at the end of the fiat dark ages, is very, very weak people. Like at the beginning of it, the last fourth turning, like when your mom was around, World War II happened. What do we even explain? My grandfather had to marry his high school girlfriend. They weren't serious, but he married her because he assumed he was going to be killed, right? He still did it. He put on the uniform, goes to fight a war that one assumes one's going to die. That's what he did. He didn't go, wait, I'm going to die. Like tweeting at everybody saying like, why are you doing this to me? Your mom, she was a teenager in high school. All the guys were gone. It's a Wisconsin farming community. Somebody especially back in those days, the peas have to be canned that day. You
Mm,
can't wait one day or they'll spoil. So she was working until sometimes 1 a.m. when she's 16, 17 in high school, and doing the job because
yeah.
somebody had to do it. And that,
One quick funny story. She tells a story of walking home at like 1 a.m. after canning peas for 7 hours, and the pea sugar,
the natural
the
sugars, yeah.
natural sugar of pea, she's coated in that stuff. And by the halfway home, it would, and in the winter in Wisconsin, it would freeze essentially, and she would be absolutely frozen solid. She couldn't move because the
Yeah.
sugar froze on her, covered in pea sugar.
But that was her sacrificing, right? This is sacrificing part of your youth. Like
Well,
what's
sacrifice is the word, right? So, but you don't sacrifice unless the narrative at the top is compelling and gets people involved. Certainly, World War II, the narrative was extremely compelling. We're fighting evil. And that narrative is so strong, it still reverberates to this day in our culture. We see the World War II narrative every single day still. But the current narrative, politically, certainly in the last 4 years, it became incredibly, watered down and weakened. I mean, there's very little in terms of a common, what I was saying earlier, this common cause.
yeah.
That the Americans, you ask 100 different Americans and you'll get a completely different story about what is critical to be done right now. I
It's like
mean,
a zero sum game. It
Right,
kind of
zero
feels
sum
like.
game is like one against all against all.
Yeah.
Instead of being a creative kind of game where you have win-win situation, and that's also kind of an American concept of the win-win. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. In Europe, where we
Yeah.
lived many years, we lived there in Europe for 20 years. They still live in that zero sum mentality.
But we're
In
gaining it here.
we're becoming very European in that sense, where your gain is my loss, and that's the way people see each other in America now. Instead of your win is my win, which is the ethos that kept the country going on the narratively for the American century, but definitely we're entering a period now which is more European in this sense of winners and losers.
But the other thing I had about this education system, because I do believe, like, okay, maybe I won't be here in 20, 30, 40 years, but I think it's really important that the people who will be the 4 and 5 and 6 year olds now at that crucial point of development are taken care of, and that the system, our society does keep moving forward. So, when you look at especially those early days, remember all those doctors and nurses who nobody knew what was going on. Everybody was panicked. All this like pandemic, the crazy wide variety of COVID reactions and stuff like that, and all the ventilators and stuff like that. You saw a lot of doctors and nurses who, traveled around the country to go to various hotspots and help, like volunteer in the
Right,
emergency rooms.
right.
So that happened all over the place, and there's amazing stories online you can read. These would be doctors who their own practices were closed because of COVID. So they would volunteer and kind of retrain to,
Oh, okay, well, let's take that idea there. That when the crisis hits, that there's a need arises,
yeah,
and teachers are critical for the developing the next generation. But okay, let's examine like a 35-year-old, 40-year-old teacher, and what have they seen in the last 20 years? They've seen the entire education system gutted,
yeah,
privatized, securitized, students being forced into punitive debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. They've
yeah,
seen their profession that
yeah,
presumably they were attracted to from a calling, like a doctor has a calling. Teachers
yeah,
speak of having a calling,
yeah,
or a priest.
yeah,
Seeing their institution, their job, uh, absolutely decimated by fiat money, privatization, private equity, greed, Wall Street bankers, and they are bitter. They are bitter. Collectively, they are bitter, and justifiably so.
yeah. Okay, but going with that doctor analogy that I was setting up there, the fact is, there were emergency field hospitals built across America. Why not just build emergency school hospitals, like, and anybody who wants to volunteer to come teach these kids, because especially that age group of 4 to 7, 8 years old, you know, um, you don't need to be, basically they need socialization and
Okay,
playing and
what
just
did we
and
find out
watching
in the
out.
beginning of the crisis? Like, well, I remember reading that the elites in Manhattan were hiring private teachers and setting up Zoom calls with other 5 or 6 kids. So the moneyed elite
Yeah,
immediately jumped into action. They hired teachers privately. They paid them, double, triple their salary, and they made sure that their kids had a teaching experience that they felt was proper.
sure.
Okay, the what we're talking about is that another 99% that obviously is not in that position to do so have been given
Yeah.
the boot.
But importantly, it's the hugest drop in female participation in the workforce since the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
So this is them having to stay home and take care of the kids. Obviously, some of them, maybe that's going to set them back later down the road in retirement. Who knows, like, what the knock-on effects are going to be? But I'm saying, like, if we could even just do, how like there were all these laws in place against serving alcohol to go from the restaurants and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and the mayors and the governors and stuff overrode those. They said, okay, it's an emergency situation. You could sell a margarita to Stacy so that she could do her podcast. And like, and that they changed the laws like that. So the same thing they should do, especially, I think, for those younger particular age where they can't really take care of themselves, so their parents have to stay home to take care of them if there's no school for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, and they need to socialize, there's no sign that they have any sort of dire impact on this virus has any impact on children. The CDC just said that this past week. The World Health Organization said that. The British government, their NHS, like all these pediatric groups have already
Mm.
said there's no sign of major impact from COVID. So, like, just have volunteer teachers that might come traveling out of retirement. You had a lot of doctors come out of retirement to treat patients. Certainly, treating a patient, you're definitely encountering a COVID person. You're definitely encountering the virus. You're definitely encountering when you had to intubate those people. That was the thing that spread it most to nurses and doctors. Like my aunt, one of my other aunt who works in the heart unit at a big hospital up in New Hampshire. She got COVID. She had to intubate lots of patients, and she
Mm-hmm.
got COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, you mentioned something else there in terms of how this crisis has impacted women,
yes,
right? So women are at home, so in huge numbers, and in many ways, and I'm curious about this. What I read and what I hear essentially is that the way I guess you could see it is that certain gains that were made in the workplace by women over the last 2 or 3 decades
yeah.
seem to be going in reverse as a part of this crisis. And I would think, and I'm curious, is that contributing to some anxiety, some frustration? Let's call it some frustration in the female population. Is that true?
Well, we'll talk about this for about 5 minutes and then wrap it up. People are noticing it's very long, but
It's a
um,
microdose.
it wasn't meant to be so long. But I'm sorry, we're still here. But I think the point is because of deplatforming, because our only way of communicating right now is online, essentially. You get deplatformed for even talking about COVID for many things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, nobody will tell on us that we actually talked about COVID because you're not allowed to. We're not allowed to have these we're not allowed to ask these questions in public at the moment because only the experts are allowed to speak, and they consider people on MSNBC and CNN experts as well, like Rachel Maddow or Chris Hayes can talk about it, but ordinary people can. I'm asking questions.
Yeah, yeah.
I just as an if I observe my aunt get COVID because she had to go to work. My other aunt did not get COVID, but she continues to go to work. My cousin, as a police officer, he got COVID, during all those protests and stuff. He got COVID. So like what when I go down, we've been having groceries delivered, but I've started to go into the grocery store and speak to Sonia and why does she have to go to work? I just want to know, like, this is what Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, these are the sort of moral debates they argued. Like, why is it moral for us as a society to expect Sonia to work, but not to expect the teacher to work? Like, what are the actual reasons for
Mm-hmm.
that moral judgment?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I think we've kind of dug into it a little bit, but it's definitely one to contemplate.
That's inviting you to leave it in the
Yeah,
comments
leave it
and
in the
also
comments.
join our Telegram group, t.me/orange pill, and just tell me, like, um, I just my observations. These are just my observations of, like, it just, and also if we continue and say, okay, teachers are too precious, fine. But how many years? Like, at what point do we develop some sort of alternative? What are you going to do about the kids? Like, are we allowed to address that? Like, do you say, is there at any point where we must consider, is it 2 years, it's 3 years, 4 years? How many years is it that these kids could stay out of school? Like, what's the consideration? I think we
Yeah,
could also go back to, like, how it was on the Wild West, when they had smaller schools, like 5 or 6 kids,
right.
and the state, how the states already give out those tokens or whatever, for kids can go to these trust schools instead. They could decentralize it even more, like get it
Mm-hmm.
down to sort of neighborhood levels. So, I mean, a lot of they could basically be like the Finnish education system. All the youngest years, it's considered the best in the world, but the youngest years are almost entirely just devoted to play. They just play all day.
Oh yeah, the Finnish school system. Yeah,
Yeah.
they just let them kind of like develop their minds.
Their interaction, how they interact with each
Right.
other, they let them basically let their brain lead them, like what interests
Their
them.
curiosity.
So whatever that child, like if they express interest in the drawing with the crayons and stuff,
Right.
they encourage them to keep drawing. The ones that like the map, they show them like the geography. They teach it. So that's easy enough to do, right?
Right. I mean, but the Finnish society is a very cohesive society, and they have very established mores and norms and goals as a society, and they tend to adhere to that. And whereas in this society, it's individualism and it's self interest and it's winner take all and it's the Wild West and everyone's got a gun. It's a totally different society,
I mean, if they did an emergency tent school, like it would be something I would consider volunteering and going helping out. Like it's like I don't I wouldn't. People are like go risk your own life. It's like I risk my life all the time, like throughout my
Yeah,
entire
I
life.
mean,
Everybody does.
we know
Like,
let's be honest. I mean, as journalists traveling in hot zones like Cairo, like Athens during the revolution, like Cairo during the revolution,
Bush and Blair nearly bombed Al Jazeera
right?
when
We
we were
do risk
working
our
there.
lives
Like,
as journalists, in war zones and hot zones around the world. That's what we do.
but
So,
we even as simple as when we did Gonzo, driving across America to look at what Americans were thinking in a post Trump world. Driving, thousands
yeah,
of people die every year from driving.
we've
Like,
come up against the state
that's
many
the risk.
times. Yeah, we've had many run-ins, very close run-ins with life and death situations, and to be the best journalists we can. So,
Sisu, that's it. Like people
yep,
need
the
Sisu because it's
sisu.
just like, uh, you know, I just feel like at a certain point, like you, any society that sacrifices their children, I just think is like it doesn't have a bright future. I just feel like if you look at what Asia has done,
Yeah,
they Google it and look up all the stories. There's hundreds of stories about how they open their schools. They mobilize their entire society to make sure the schools were open
yeah,
because they know for a fact they need a bright future because they have hundreds of millions and billions of people over there. So here we're just like so lethargic and lazy, like, oh, okay, my kid might be stupid for the rest of his life, but we'll just print some money. It's like that's not the future, man. The dollar's dead. It's over. Like you got to prepare. You got to prepare for good times. You got to prepare for all times.
you got to be prepared, and I think we're preparing now to say
Say,
goodbye. Bye.
I'm gonna go
Goodbye.
get one of these margaritas that are on offer.
Yeah, get one of those 6 foot tall margaritas.